What is going on, Wastelanders? It is me, the Lone Vault Wanderer, with another Fallout 4 What We Want video. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about player choice. This is something which has come up time and again, both on my Fallout 4 videos, people just commenting, in the Ham Radio podcast it came up a few times, where I've tried to emphasize the need for Fallout 4 to focus on player choice. And what do I mean by that? Well, if you've played Fallout 3, and I assume that most of you have, it's a game which doesn't necessarily focus on player choice in any meaningful way. You go through the main quest, you look for your dad, you do a few things here for Three Dog, you eventually find your dad, and then the only real choice, spoiler alert, is when you have the FEV virus and President Eden says, alright, you can use this FEV virus to put it into the water purifier and essentially cleanse the wasteland. And that's the only real choice, at least from memory, that Fallout 3 offered to you. Now with Fallout New Vegas, it was a bit more varied. You essentially came to a point in the game where you could essentially choose which faction that you wanted to support, whether that was Mr. House, whether that was the NCR, the Legion, or even yourself taking over the Mojave. So there was a bit more options there, but the player choice that I really want to see Fallout 4 push is not only player choice, which is numerous in terms of the amounts of times that you need to decide on particular things, whether to progress through the storyline or just in terms of side quests, but also in terms of the meaningfulness of the choice that players are confronted with, and choice that isn't necessarily clear cut. It's not that, alright, I'm going to support this group over here which has good intentions, and because of that, the wasteland is going to be better, or I can go to this really bad group, and because I'm supporting them, bad things are going to be happening in the wasteland. I don't want those clear-cut choices. I want choices where, say for example, there are two completely good, honest groups or factions or people or individuals that you have to decide between who to help, who to support, and because you're deciding to help one person or one faction or one group, that other person or faction or group whose intentions are just as good, who are just as honest, who are just as good people as the other group that you're decided to support, they're going to suffer because of that decision you've made. It's like, for example, you were to ask a parent, which child would you want to save? Now obviously that's a very, very tough decision to make, but you understand my point. I want us in Fallout 4 as the player to really have to sit and think, shit, what option am I going to choose? Which route am I going to pursue? Am I going to help this group or am I going to help that group? Because I know if I help one of those groups, the other group in question is going to be severely affected by this in a negative way. And I want, because I've decided to go one way or another, for myself on a personal level to feel bad about the decision I've made, even though it's helping one group, because there's another group which is being negatively impacted. So I want those really, really hard decisions. I also want those decisions which, when I make them, it really affects the wasteland in some sort of meaningful and some sort of massive way. I want decisions that I make to completely change the outlook of the wasteland. I don't want small decisions I make, like for example in Fallout 3, yeah, I'm going to put the FEV virus into the water purifier and now I can see what happens in ending slide cards. That, you know, for example, some humans actually died because of the FEV virus in the water. I don't want that. What I want is, when I make a decision, I actually can see in real time the impacts upon the wasteland, whether for good or for worse. I want to see the impacts of the choices that I make actually being told in story, actually being described in game. And I want a lot of different occasions like that, so by the time that you get to the end of Fallout 4, the game that you've played could be completely different to the game that somebody else has played. Because again, using Fallout 3 as an example, you can choose a bad route, you can choose a good route, but essentially up until you reach those final slate cards or end cards, everybody's essentially played the same game. Yeah, you get a different outlook of the wasteland, but you don't get to really experience that. So in my opinion, I didn't really feel like my choices actually mattered. All I saw was Ron Perlman giving some narration about how the wasteland turned out in the end because of the choices I made. I want that to be shown to me. I actually want to see people, if I made a bad choice for example, I want to see people suffering. If I had to choose between two equally good groups, I want to see what happened to the other group because I didn't decide to support them. But anyways, Wastelanders, those are just my thoughts. It's a very high level video, I'll admit, but I do really want to see Fallout 4 have much more of a focus and emphasis on player choice, because I think that's been lacking. New Vegas, again, if you decide to help a particular faction, yeah, it completely changes the outlook of the Mojave, but again, you don't get to really see that. You don't get to really see, say if you help the Legion, how the Wasteland is actually become negatively impacted because of that. But anyways, Wastelanders, that's all from me. Put your thoughts in the comments below, I would love to hear from you, and until next time, this has been the Lone Vault Wanderer. Please take care of yourself, and as always, keep fighting the good fight.